And it's great to be back now with the Massachusetts Senate Minority Leader, Senator Bruce Tarr from Gloucester. And again, full disclosure, a neighbor of mine, a former student of mine. And Senator Tarr, great to be talking with you again.
Great to be back with you, Rick. And it's always nice to be talking to you in an arena where you can't give me homework. So,
yeah, what happens is with my website now, it's the other way around. You give me the homework. I got to produce all this stuff. So I guess turnabout is fair play, right?
Yes, indeed.
Listen, Senator, a lot of good stuff going on right now. We're beginning to get to the surface. We're beginning to break through the water and get rescued here. And I think there's a lot of good, positive stuff going on right now. And maybe we could start with the most recent signing of a bill by the governor relating to the climate, as a matter of fact.
So I actually just left a press conference and bill signing where Governor Baker signed the climate bill that's been in the progress here for a number of months, actually a couple of years. And that was the result of collaboration between all of the parties. Interestingly enough, the governor had sent back a series of amendments to the climate bill because he was concerned about a number of different elements of it. And I was too, with regard to some of the issues of cost and making sure that people will be able to afford coping with the changes that this bill will require. Fortunately, the vast majority of the amendments that the governor offered have been incorporated into the bill subsequent to a veto. And so the bill was signed today. We still have work to do, Rick, but as I said at the press conference, if you're worried about cost, then wait till it's too late to try to do something and see what the cost of that would be, because doing things without a plan is very rarely cost effective. So the governor put his signature on this bill. It is multifaceted, but it is one step in many, but I think positive news.
You know, I'm going to throw you a curveball, Senator, and you don't have to answer this because we didn't talk about it in our pregame warm-up. But the governor has been taking some heat from, I don't know, different editorial sources about the handling of the vaccination program, which could lead us into something down the road here. But I'm thinking, you know, you and so many other people at the State House were saying, we got the facilities in our local communities to get these vaccinations out. It's just make sure we get the resources, give us the supply. You know, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, but I think the governor in general and the administration in general is doing a fabulous job getting this thing rolling.
You know, Rick, it's interesting because we're in an unprecedented situation. Decisions have to be made. They're difficult decisions, but someone's got to make them. And the governor has made those decisions and he's forged ahead. And obviously there are some things that haven't worked out as well as any of us would like. There's been a lot of frustration, for instance, with the website to make appointments for vaccines. But even with all of those things, if you look at our statistics versus the rest of the nation in terms of per capita vaccination, in terms of the amount of dose that we've received that's actually gone into people's arms, if you look at those statistics, we are, by all accounts, leading this country. Now, certainly there might be some other states that might be in that top tier with us, and there might be states with less population that might even be ahead of us. But the fact is, it's a rocky road. There are going to be bumps in the road. But if you focus on the bumps and you don't look ahead to where you're trying to go, then you're always going to get tripped up. And so what I would say is that the governor's been doing the best he can. Again, I understand the frustration. It's a sensitive subject, but look at the stats. The one thing that remains an issue, and we do have some hope about this, Rick, is being able to get some more doses. The governor was standing next to me just maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, indicating that we have some hope of getting more vaccine doses from the federal government. But what he also said is that our ability to vaccinate right now is multiple times the amount of vaccine that we're getting. And so, you know, there's continued work on opening new clinics and new sites. And I think ultimately our ability to vaccinate will match the vaccine that we're getting. But we only have one source for that vaccine, and that sometimes makes it difficult.
All right, I want to get back to that, obviously, Senator. But one thing that you did mention that you asked that I want to ask about is payroll protection and that kind of thing. The governor also has some stuff from, and you guys do too, from the legislature work coming up.
So one thing I'm really pleased about, Rick, is that the House and the Senate have now enacted a single piece of legislation, but it has many different dimensions. And one of its core dimensions is the Payroll Protection Program, because you may remember from our past conversations that those were loans that were given to businesses with the expectation that they would use the majority of the funds to keep people on their payroll. That's why it's called the Payroll Protection Program. If you did that, then your loan converted to a grant. That grant is not taxable by the federal government, but if we don't act, it will be by Massachusetts.
Okay.
So a big part of the bill is actually excluding a loan that converted to a grant from taxation. A second thing that's really important is unemployment insurance. Obviously, we've depleted our state unemployment trust fund because we've had to pay out a lot of benefits because people have been out of work, and we've added eligibility to it. So the fund needs help. Normally, what we would do in that case is borrow money from the federal government and then pass the cost of that borrowing on to employers. Doing that would cause an increase for the average employer from the mid 500s, so $535, $545 per employee, to well over $800 an employee, almost $900.
Wow.
So the governor put together a plan to use the borrowing power of the state to go into the private markets, borrow less expensively, and pass those savings on to businesses. And that's part of the bill as well. But the bill isn't just about employers, it's also about employees. So for instance, if your income is less than 200% of the federal poverty level, the first $10,200 of your unemployment insurance benefits will not be taxed if the bill gets signed into law. The other thing that the bill does for employees that's very important is create a unique system of paid leave if you have a COVID complication. So if you need time off to get vaccinated, if you need to quarantine, if you've got to deal with anything related to those things, there is a benefit that is included in this bill. And that is about a $75 million cost to the state, but we're hoping to use some of the new federal money from the American Recovery Plan for that. So this is a really important bill, and I'm really glad that it's on the governor's desk. I have a hope and expectation he will sign it, but that has not happened yet.
Do you get a lot of complaints is the wrong word, Senator, but a lot of calls or a lot of inquiries about recovery right now from businesses? I know restaurants, obviously, we always bring that up, but there are so many other people who have been impacted by this. And it just seems to me that with the new administration in Washington, with what's happening on Beacon Hill, that you are reacting positively, or at least you are reacting to the calls that are coming to Beacon Hill.
No doubt. And Rick, most businesses have been harmed, and harmed significantly by the pandemic. Some have not. So for instance, those that are maybe doing construction or home remodeling or things like that seem to have fared better. But the fact is, we need to emerge from this pandemic with a strong economic recovery. And so the bill that I just mentioned is a step. It's a very important step. Mm-hmm. But I and my colleagues have filed a number of bills to be able to continue to help in other ways, in different ways. And that is going to continue to be one of the focuses of our state government, is to help build a strong economic recovery. And again, not just for the folks that provide the jobs, but for the people who are in the jobs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I guess following up on what we talked about a little bit earlier, there's a new wrinkle to the vaccination situation here, particularly on the North Shore.
So I mentioned earlier that vaccination capacity is very important. And Rick, I'm really pleased to tell you that a regional effort that I've been trying to facilitate really came together in an important way yesterday. And so we wound up having a unanimous vote of 7 communities, including Gloucester, Rockport, Manchester, Essex, but also Ipswich, Hamilton, and Wenham, to work together to create a regional vaccination effort. And so we're writing the plan right now, but if we're successful, what it will mean is folks will not have to travel as far to get a vaccine, and we'll be able to use the expertise and the talent of people in our own communities to be able to boost that vaccination capacity. And hopefully it won't be long before we can get more doses and put the capacity to work.
I think that is fantastic. And I think also, again, the way that the state of Massachusetts has handled this, and of course that generally refers to the legislature and to the administration, has been amazing, because there was some real complaints early on with the website and so on, the rollout. But each week, if not each day, there's improvement. There's learning. You throw out what didn't work, you bring in the new stuff, and it's been going better and better. So this sounds like it's a real hope for those who would rather go, for example, in Gloucester to the Elks or to CVS in other communities or whatever.
Absolutely, Rick. And we're also doing it, I should mention, in conjunction with Addison Gilbert Hospital. So the idea would be to take all the capability that we have, put it together, and then operate from 1 or 2 sites, maybe even 3. But the hope is that we can get approval to do this, we can get the doses to do it, and we can localize vaccination capacity in a way that individual communities can't do anymore because they can't get individualized doses.
Okay, final question, Senator. And this is, again, this is just off the rails. So, I see you looking at the clock, and I'll make it very quick. The normal, and I put that in quotes, business of Massachusetts still has to go on during all this. And just tell me about the reaction to that. How is that happening?
Well, it's happened in a way that's evolved. Certainly when we first had the declaration of the public health emergency about a year ago now, we all had to find our way. We had to learn very quickly how to use technology like that which we're using. We had to figure out, can we be in the State House? Should we not be in the State House? How do we continue to pass important legislation? And one of the things I'm proudest of is the way that early on in the pandemic, when it wasn't clear that we could get together in any way, and we didn't have the electronic infrastructure yet to do so, we were able to say, we're going to put everything contentious aside, and we're going to act on the matters that we need to act on. And we're going to do it in what we call an informal session, Rick, which means that anybody can object and stop everything. No one did.
Oh, wow.
Okay. We were able to get through that. And then we were slowly able to develop rules that would allow us to use technology and do it in a way that had integrity, because we don't want to be using things that would compromise the integrity of our decision making. We're able to do that. I was very pleased on the part of the Senate to be heavily involved in that effort. We got a set of rules in place. We had to modify those rules a couple of times. So at first we had to use only informal sessions. They worked. Then we had to graduate to other things that we could do. And now we are operating in a way that is much more normalized, but again, still different, because when we're debating and when we're in session, most of us are not in the chamber. And we all look forward to the day when that can change.